Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for joining us on the Classified Caribbean channel. And today we're going to have a stimulating discussion with Professor Robert Fatton, and he is a Haitian scholar. And we are looking at the topic Haiti after TPS. Is the country facing its greatest humanitarian crisis yet? Before I have Professor Fatton on the stage, please let me give you a brief introduction of Professor Fatton. Now, Professor Robert Fatton is a prominent political scientist known for his influential work on Haiti politics, at Haitian politics, Caribbean studies, and theories of democracy and authoritarianism. He is a professor in the Department of Politics at the University of Virginia, where his research has focused on issues such as state failure, elite power, and democratic instability in the global south. Now, Professor Patton is best known for his analyses of Haiti's political system, particularly the dynamics of predatory rule and the challenges of building stable democratic institutions. Among his most important works are Haiti's Predatory Republic, The Unending Transition to Democracy, that's 2002, which examines the persistence of political instability and elite domination, and the guise of exceptionalism unmasking the national narratives of Haiti and the United States, that was published in 2014, where he critiques national myths and their impact on political identity. His earlier work, Haiti's Predatory Republic, The Unending Transition to Democracy, along with Haiti, The Politics of Squalor, 2006, has been widely cited for its deep insight into governance and social inequality. Through his scholarship, Fatton has contributed significantly to understanding the structural challenges facing post-colonial states, particularly in the Caribbean. So I'm going to have Professor Fatton to join our discussion right now. I'm placing him on the stage where we'll be having a stimulating conversation. Good morning, Professor Fatton.
Good morning, and thank you for that very kind introduction.
Yes,
It's a
thank you
pleasure
so
to be
much.
with
Thank you
you.
so much. And I thank you so much for joining us. Now, the end of temporary protected status is raising urgent questions about Haiti's future. Can a nation already struggling with gang violence, political instability, and economic collapse absorb thousands of returning migrants? Today, we'll examine the sobering warning from one of the world's leading experts on Haiti, Professor Robert Fatton, and discuss what his analysis means not only for Haiti, but for the United States and the wider Caribbean. Now, Professor Fatton, the first question I would like to pose to you: yesterday, the United States celebrated its how many years? 250 years of so-called independence. Could you summarize, Professor Fatton, the contributions of Haiti to that independence, and perhaps to our listening audience who perhaps don't know, and what role did the Haitian Revolution play in the fact that Haiti perhaps could have been occupied by Napoleon in history, but as a result of the Haitian Revolution and its success, it prevented that from happening?
Yes, well, there were several Haitian leaders actually who participated in the American Revolution. If you go to Savannah in Georgia, there are statues of many of those leaders who actually helped the United States to become independent. And then the history of the United States and Haiti is a rather peculiar history because when we got our independence in 1804, the United States essentially tried to impose an embargo. And it was not just the United States, it was essentially the Western world at that period, because Haiti, as the first independent Black nation, and obviously the first major revolution of slaves who literally gained their freedom as a result of their victory over Napoleon, well, that was a threat to the Atlantic slave trade. It was a threat to the economies in the Western world, in particular in the southern part of the United States, and obviously also in Brazil and the rest of Latin America. So the consequences of our helping many nations to get their independence Well, that was not rewarded according to the significance of that help. And as you mentioned, another major event in the history of the United States, the so-called Louisiana Purchase, which literally doubled the superficie of the United States, was the direct result of the Haitian Revolution, when the Haitians defeated the Napoleonic forces, and Napoleon was compelled to sell at a very cheap price, actually, that huge territory to the United States. So we've made significant contributions to the independence of the United States, and obviously to the independence of Latin America. It's been recognized, but not enough. And then we've paid other prices for that independence, the Haitian debt, as whatever you want to call it, when the French came in 1825 and imposed a massive debt on the Haitians, so that the French would recognize Haiti's independence. That was a complicated story. It's not just extortion on the part of the French. There was some significant collaboration between Haitian leaders of the ruling class and the imperialist power. And this is a theme that we continuously see in the history of Haiti up to the present, that opportunistic convergence of interest between imperial powers and what I've called a predatory ruling class.
Yes. Professor Fatton, could you turn up your volume slightly? I'm not sure if I'm still struggling to hear you. I wonder if the others are hearing. Am I hearing well? Are you guys hearing well, Professor Fatton?
Can you hear
Good.
me now?
Yes, I'm hearing you well. I'm hearing you
Okay,
better.
great.
I'm hearing you a little better than I was
I
hearing you
put it at the
before.
maximum. Okay, thank you.
Yes, yes. Now, the United States is moving toward ending TPS protections for many Haitians. What practical consequences could this have for Haiti over the next 12 to 24 months?
This is a huge deal. It's not at all clear how you're going to move 350,000 Haitians back to Haiti. Now, the United States, as we know, under Trump, has started to move immigrants to other countries. And that may happen, or they may force them to go to Guantanamo. That has happened in the past, too. Haitians compelled to leave the United States, or Haitians who wanted to exit Haiti because of natural calamities or political trouble, well, they were compelled to go to Guantanamo. Now, I don't see how you can really return 350,000 Haitians to Haiti under the conditions of the political system now, under the economic crisis that we have, and the humanitarian crisis. On the other hand, Trump is clearly decided that he wants to do it, and it could be something that would materialize. On the other hand, there is something that may happen in Congress. The House has voted a law that has not passed the Senate yet, that would postpone the day of expulsion of the Haitians from the United States. Now, if that doesn't work, then I'm not quite sure what kind of calamities Haiti will face. First, you have the issue of relocating, as I've said, 350,000 people. If you send them to Haiti, I don't know where they would go. Moreover, there is the simple business of how would you transport such a huge number of people to Haiti when the main airport in Haiti is essentially closed. There is only one way you can come, is to Cape Haitian. It's a very small airport. So in terms of the logistics of this business of expelling 350,000, I just don't see it. There is also the consequence of that expulsion on the Haitian economy. It's not just that you would have a huge number of people facing very, very bad conditions in terms of access to food, lodging, etc. But Haitians in Haiti have been dependent on the diaspora for the remittances. something like more than $3 billion have been sent to Haiti from mainly the American diaspora, I mean the Haitian diaspora in Haiti. If you send such a large number, that would have a devastating impact on the economy and particularly on the poorest segments of the population, which are already facing dire conditions. You have something like 500,000 people who've been relocated internally. You have a humanitarian crisis in terms of access to health. You have a humanitarian crisis in terms of shortages of food, etc. So that would be a real calamity. And one can only hope that this does not materialize. But we've seen under Trump so many drastic changes that have astonished us and have left me really bewildered. Although he had announced them, but I never thought that he would go that far in terms of the implementation of those plans. The whole business about TPS, and it's not just for Haitians, but for Haitians in particular, this is a very cruel policy if it were to materialize.
Yes. Now, can Haiti realistically absorb large numbers of deportees given its current political, economic, and security challenges? And is the United States admitting the fact that it has, to a large extent, contributed to this political, economic, and security insecurity in Haiti?
Well, this is a very interesting question because if you read the documents of the State Department, they clearly point out that the situation in Haiti is catastrophic. They don't want Americans to go to Haiti. So that tells you that the security situation is such that Americans should not go to Haiti. This is in their policy. In terms of their portrayal of the situation in Haiti, it's also a portrayal of a failed state, as they called it. So it's very difficult to understand how suddenly the Supreme Court can say that conditions in Haiti have changed so drastically that you can send Haitians back to Haiti. That is a puzzle. And the only way you can understand that puzzle, and I'm afraid to put it so bluntly, is that there is a racial bias in that policy. I just don't see, for instance, if you had, let's imagine, a humanitarian crisis in Norway or Sweden, and you would have a TPS for Swedish or Danish people, that Trump would simply say, oh, well, go back to that country. That doesn't really sound quite a Trumpian type of policy. And you can see that also in terms of immigration. The astonishing thing is that under Trump, the people who are considered to be exploited or under duress are Afrikaners in South Africa. Those are the only people that Trump has allowed to come to the United States. People who actually are very privileged in South Africa. It's astonishing. Yes. It's really astonishing. So the policy to me is a cruel policy. It's really a policy that is based also on very significant racial bias. If you listen to Trump, I mean, it's not just Haiti, but I'm sorry to say the very words of President Trump. He considered Haiti and many African countries as shitholes. That tells you the nature of the understanding of the Trump administration vis-a-vis Haitians and West Africans in particular.
Yes. And I'm still struggling a little to hear you. I'm wondering if can you hear me well? Are you hearing me well?
I can hear you very well.
Yes, because I'm struggling a little to hear everything you're saying, which is sort of
I'm not sure.
You know, yeah. Can you turn up the volume a little, slightly, if you will?
I have turned it at the maximum, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I'm not sure if are you guys struggling to hear Professor Fatton, or are you hearing him clearly on your side, on your end? Could you tell me in the comment section if you guys are hearing everything that Professor Fatton is saying? Okay, now, Professor Fatton, I'm not sure if I heard you well, but Do you think that this is a racialized immigration policy? Because you mentioned something about South Africa, but we know that also the Syrians are also involved. About 6,000 Syrians Trump has on his list to be deported. Now, does the United States consider Syrians to be white, or can we just safely say this is a racialized policy versus it's probably a policy for everyone?
I think it's a racialized policy. There is also a very strong anti-Islamic sentiment in the Trump administration. And I believe, and I can't prove that, but that they look at the Middle East as Syrians or Palestinians as surplus population. This is my deep feeling about the immigration policies of the United States at the moment. The way, for instance, Palestinians are treated, and there is no comment saying that this is in fact something horrible. It's essentially a genocide. It's the same thing. So I think there is a racialized and also a Christian fundamentalist sentiment there. And vis-a-vis the Haitian population, I think it's the same thing, because they consider Haitians, as Trump used to put it, that Haitians eat dogs, they eat cats, they are involved in voodoo, and all of that, to me, is the construction of a framework to put Haitians in a category of subhuman who do not deserve human treatment. And
Yes.
this is not a universal sentiment in the United States, but it is a powerful minority sentiment, and I'm afraid that it has been captured by the Trump administration for political reasons, electoral reasons. And you have that fellow, I forget his first name, but Miller, who's in charge of many things in the White House, and he clearly is, in my view, a white fundamentalist.
Yes. Professor Fatton, I'm sure you're aware of the Dominican Republic and its immigration policies to Haiti. Now, having studied those policies seriously and lived in the country for a long time in Santo Domingo, and I've seen how those policies are sort of set up. And I realize that it's a business, right? For the constant, deporting them, that they come back and they deport them, but they have to pay huge sums of money to get back in. Do you think that Trump is sort of, well, I know that a lot of the policies in Santo Domingo are also copied from United States foreign policy. Do you think that is the same sort of foreign policy that the United States is trying to implement for Haitians and other immigrants in the future, in terms of immigration will now become a business rather than something, where people are seeking asylum or safety or, refuge in another country?
Yeah, I think there's a business aspect to it. And that's for everyone now, not just people from the Caribbean or West Africa, etc. You have to pay, in some instances, inordinate amounts of money to get a visa. It's rather fascinating to see. I mean, we have the World Cup here now. If you wanted to come, if you're from Senegal, for instance, you would need to put down $15,000 to have your visa examined and be given. Now, those are astonishing amounts of money for third world countries. That's the way it is. But they've started to impose some rules for Western Europe, etc. So I think there is an aspect of business. And if you're very wealthy also, you can buy your way to the United States. I mean, you're talking about, I think it's $5 million. If you pay that, you would have preferential treatment to enter the United States. You may get a green card, and eventually you could get, the citizenship. So there is that aspect to it. But at the moment, I think immigration is a really racial policy, and it's a policy that blames the internal problems of the United States on foreigners. And that is a peculiar way to put matters in the United States, because it's a nation that is built on immigration from all kinds of different countries. I mean, Trump himself was married to two women who were immigrants. So it's obviously from Eastern Europe, but nonetheless, they are not, as he liked to put it, birthright citizens. And if he had had his way, birthright citizenship would have disappeared. So the Supreme Court, in one instance of sanity, decided that that would not go. So the immigration policy is based on race, and it's also based on the internal politics of the United States, blaming the immigrants for internal problems. There is one issue, though, that is very interesting. It's not just the Haitian population, the TPS population. There are other immigrants who do that. They are involved in the healthcare business. A significant portion of the healthcare business, in particular in Florida, in Massachusetts, and New York, is basically the job of immigrants who have a TPS. Haitians are very significant in that economy in those three states. And it could create a significant crisis in those three states, because if they leave, the elderly population, which is increasing in the United States, people working in the hospitals, etc., they would lose a significant portion of their labor force. And Haitians are underpaid, as you know, and many of those jobs do not come with social security benefits, they do not come with healthcare benefits, and they are cheap, very cheap wages. So if you expel that population, Americans themselves will suffer the consequences, in particular people who are in their 70s, 80s, etc. This is a problem that even the Republicans in Florida are facing, and they may try to, in fact, oppose the repatriation of Haitians to Haiti. So we'll see. But there is an economic dimension to it that affects the United States itself.
Yes. Now, and that is a beautiful, response. And I want to let the viewers understand, because many of them don't understand Professor Fatton. They think that Haitian state is a pariah, and that all the other Caribbean states are, functional and we're doing well. But they don't understand that much of the policies that are being played out right now in Haiti are as well being played out in the other parts of the Caribbean region, which leads us to the other question. Haiti has experienced repeated cycles of political breakdown. Why has the Haitian state struggled to establish stability and effective institutions?
As I was saying previously, I think there is a convergence of interest, an opportunistic convergence of interest, and a malign convergence of interest between the Haitian ruling class and foreign powers. And we've seen that throughout the history of the United States. For instance, when we are talking about the debt of Haiti in 1825, when the French sent, their boats and threatened the Haitian government of Boyer of being destroyed if it didn't sign the agreement to pay the debt. Well, that is absolutely true. That's massive imperial intervention. On the other hand, one of the reasons why Boyer and his allies in the Haitian ruling class signed the document is because they wanted to protect the property that they had acquired as a result of the Haitian Revolution. In other words, land property. And it was never secure until the major powers recognized Haiti as an independent nation. And the debt was basically paid, obviously, by the Haitian state, but on the back of Haitian peasants. That's very clear. So when we are talking about the debt, we need to look also at the issue of class, at the issue of who is in charge in Haiti and who is suffering the consequences of that rule. And I think that's very much the same thing that we have now. Many of the leaders in Haiti have always collaborated with foreign powers, and foreign powers have always been involved in Haitian politics. You talk about the American intervention in the early part of the 20th century, from 1915 to 1934. Again, there are problems in Haiti that are not just problems that are caused by internal reasons, but also by foreign interference. And that leads to an opening for imperial powers. And the United States went to Haiti. They just went to the National Bank of Haiti. They seized all the reserves of the Haitian government, put those reserves in the banks in New York, and occupied the country for that amount of time, 15 to 34. So we have that type of intervention, but the intervention itself generated an army that was to a large degree kind of an army to impose internal order, but also to be the Praetorian Guard of the United States itself. You didn't like a government in Haiti? Well, the army would wage a coup. And that was the pattern. It happened, obviously, when Duvalier took power in 1957, there was a similar issue. I mean, those were the high days of the Cold War, and Duvalier, in spite of his black power rhetoric, he was clearly a man of the right, and he opposed the Cuban Revolution so that he would get preferential treatment by the United States. The United States protected the Duvalier regime up till the very end with his son Jean-Claude in 1986. So you have governments that were utterly corrupt and very vicious. And those governments, in spite of the rhetoric of the Western powers, well, they supported those governments for their particular reasons. In the Cold War, it was very clearly that they were afraid of the spread of a communist revolution, etc., etc. So we have that reality that continues to be a burden on the Haitian population. If you look at the very recent past, you can see the dominance of external powers. When Jovenel Moïse was assassinated in 2021, a government was formed. The government initially was headed by a fellow by the name of by Claude. And Claude initially took power as a prime minister. But 10 days after that, the international community, through a tweet, announced that, well, Claude, the prime minister, would need to exit because Ariel Henry would become the new prime minister. And Ariel Henry took power, and he didn't last very long. He lasted about 2 years. And Ariel Henry had assumed that he was a prime minister that was protected by the international community. And he was deposed just like that. And it's a fascinating story because Ariel Henry had negotiated an agreement with the United States and Kenya, whereby the Kenyans would send a police force to try to establish some order as a result of the gang violence. So Ariel Henry goes to Kenya, he goes to Nairobi, and he signs the papers. And when he comes back to Haiti with the agreement, the United States tells him, well, sorry, you can't get back to Haiti. And he tried to get back to the Dominican Republic and then go to Haiti. And the DR told us, well, the Americans have told us that you shouldn't go back to Haiti. So he ends up in New Jersey, and now he's living somewhere in California. That tells you the significance of the power of the United States in the internal politics of the country. And that has been a pattern. Many of the people who've been elected, I'd rather say selected, were selected by the international community, mainly the United States, but the French, the Canadians have had a significant role in those processes. So yes, the international community has really contributed to the disorder that exists in Haiti, but one should not underestimate the responsibility of the Haitian ruling class. If you look at the
Yes.
gangs, for instance, the gangs were
Yes.
to a large degree created by politicians, by the private sector, in order to protect their particular material interest. And as the crisis in this century has been aggravated, well, you see that the gangs are actually becoming almost autonomous from the ruling class. They are becoming a power unto themselves. And that's what has changed in the last 5 or 6 years, because the gangs existed, but they were to a large degree controlled to some extent by powerful politicians and businessmen. Now they have to pay the gangs to do their dirty business.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I saw this in the US USA Today, and that was published sometimes last week. I think it was on July 2nd, but this week, last week. Sterilizing foreigners, dissolving the U.S. marginalized birthright next steps. And that was something interesting for a paper to be carrying, a mainstream paper. It says impeaching judges, sterilizing visitors, dissolving the union. Some prominent conservatives suggested extreme measures could be called for in the wake of a Supreme Court decision upholding birthright citizenship. And they're using the word sterilizing. So what is the real agenda, Professor Fatton? Help us to really unmask what really is behind this Trump immigration policy that we're seeing in the United States.
Well, I think that many people in the Trump administration are really believers in the so-called replacement theory. They think that the United States is going to be totally undermined by immigration of people of color, period. And they want to stop that. This is very clear. But the reality, though, is that if you look at the statistics in the demography of the United States, by 2050, the U.S. will really be a colored country, if you want to call it that way. So the whites will be, in fact,
Yes.
in a minority. And I don't think you can stop that. But there is that desperate attempt to stop it. In all of the speeches that you hear from the White House, there is a lot of white power behind it, even if it's coded. And this is something that the United States will have to deal with. But I'm confident that this is a very nasty moment, but that it will not last that long. I think there is already a backlash. It's very difficult to put back what has already happened. And I think that people are mobilizing, people are fed up with some of those very policies. Even the MAGA people are increasingly divided because Trump has tried to sell them something that is not delivering, So, and you can see the fragmentation in the right wing of the United States. People who were total supporters of Trump are now saying that they made a huge mistake and that he was wrong. I mean, people like Tucker Carlson, who was one of the main supporters of Trump, now saying that essentially everything that he thought about Trump was wrong. He's now condemning Israel when he was one of the main supporters of Israel. He's condemning also the very racist policies. So we have kind of a transformation in MAGA itself, and we'll see if it continues, and we'll see what happens in the midterm elections, whether Trump will win again something or whether his rule is going to start to really become less total, as we've seen. One of the problems, though, is that Congress has been very powerless in the face of Trump. It's astonishing that they've tolerated many of the things that Trump has done, even in simple things. I mean, if you go to Washington, he wants to transform Washington into a Trumpian Olympus, as it were. This is very bizarre. Yesterday, he put his face on Mount Rushmore. He wants to put his face there as one of the greatest leaders of the United States. I just don't get it, that people look at it and they don't say much. They don't resist much more forcefully. But hopefully that will change. We've had some changes, for instance, in New York. When you look at the mayor of New York, when you look at some elections in Colorado. So things are moving, but obviously, for my particular taste, they are moving too slowly.
Yes. Now, this commenter is here saying the U.S. immigration policy under Trump is controlled by Stephen Miller, which he was very frank last week when he said that anybody who's seeking asylum, this is not the country to which to apply. If you want asylum, then you have to sign on to a third country. That is what he's suggesting. But the commenter is saying here that the foreign policy is controlled by Stephen Miller, the Zionist racist. Would you agree with this commenter?
Yeah, I mentioned his name, Miller. I'd forgotten his first name, Stephen. It's very clear that he had that vision of a white nationalist United States. I mean, yesterday, for the 250th anniversary, there were white nationalist forces in DC celebrating, on the mall in Washington D.C. This is astonishing. I mean, those were Nazi essentially doing it.
Yes.
It's a very bizarre coalition because you have Zionists, and on the other hand, you have a bunch of neo-Nazi groups. I live in Charlottesville at the university. I teach at the University of Virginia, and as you may remember, Charlottesville had an event whereby Nazis, were on the grounds at the university and then in the city. And that was one of the most amazingly disturbing and racist events that I've ever seen. I was there watching them, and thank God they were pushed away. The community mobilized and they pushed them away. But it was very frightening because they had come with guns. It was as if you were living in Germany, in the late 1930s and the 1940s. But that, thank God, was pushed. But they reappeared yesterday, and that was very disturbing too.
Yes. Now, many Haitians believe, and I think non-Haitians also, that the foreign powers have played a significant role in shaping Haiti's political trajectory, including what is happening now. They believe that these foreign powers do not want to see the first free Black republic successful, because then it will give the other Caribbean states and peoples of the world, including Black Americans, that here you have the first free Black republic doing well, so they're doing everything in their powers to ensure that the state never functions. Is that true?
Well, I'm of a mixed opinion there. I think there is some of that, but I think that one has to also look at the responsibility of Haitians themselves in Haiti. Uh, this is, again, I return to that notion of opportunistic convergence between foreign powers and ruling groups in Haiti. You cannot absolve the Haitian ruling class from from the damage that it has done to the country, and they are participating in that catastrophe. Uh, Clearly, as I've said, external powers are also involved in it. They don't
Yes.
personally. I think foreign powers don't particularly care about Haiti. Whether it works or it doesn't work, they don't give a damn, to put it. But they want the ruling classes to stay in power. Those are the people they trust. They do not trust any political party or any political movement that would want to challenge the existing economic and social policies. That's the bottom line. They are afraid that there would be, if there is, a movement from below, that it would change the structures. And that, to me, is the danger. If you have a movement from below that threatened the existing structures in Haiti, that would have a significant impact, not only on Haiti, but on the rest of the Caribbean too. And that they do not want. They want the world order as it is constituted to remain such, because the United States, although I think its imperial power is starting to decrease, but they want that to remain very much the same. In other words, if you don't want to change the economic structures, you don't want to change the structures of the alliances that exist, because that might undermine the power of those imperial powers.
Yes. Now, Professor Fatton, you've written extensively about class and power in Haiti, and some of our viewers have been asking the question: what role does class play in Haiti's lack of performance? We know that class is a problem in Jamaica and throughout the Anglo-Caribbean as well. How do Haiti's economic and political elites fit into the current crisis? I think you've addressed it to some extent. But do you think that the class in Haiti, the ruling class, and the American ruling class are one? Or do you think that they are distinct to some regards, in some
They are
regards?
to some extent distinct, but on the other hand, the survival of the Haitian ruling class is very much dependent on the United States.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just class. There is also obviously the question of color in Haiti. I mean, people of my color, so we call them mulattoes in Haiti, they've traditionally have had economic power, and they've had also a role in the running of the country, and we call that la politique de doublure. In other words, you have black faces, and the mulatto
Mm-hmm.
elite literally tells them what to do. And I think that's something that has existed in Haiti throughout the history of Haiti. On the other hand, you've had black leaders like Duvalier who are espousing the so-called black power ideology, who are as exploitative and as predatory as
Mm-hmm.
the mulatto elite. And what is interesting with the Duvalier is that while Papa Doc espoused that ideology, his son Jean-Claude started to dissolve that ideology because he saw that there was an interest to merge black and mulatto economic elites and political elites. And with Jean-Claude Duvalier, that takes the form literally of a wedding. Duvalier marries a woman by the name of Michelle Bennett, who was part of the mulatto elite. That was a symbiotic relationship, and I think it has remained so. I think there is that kind of penetration. And we have also the issue of we call them in Haiti Syriens. In other words, people coming from the Middle East, whether they came from Syria or Lebanon or Palestine, but we all are grouped under the name of Syrian, and they have a significant economic power, in particular in the import business. And this is basically the economy of Haiti now. We don't produce anything, we import everything. So when you import, you sell, you're a very unproductive elite. You're essentially a middleman without a productive base. And that is one of the major problems of Haiti. Because you can understand, an economic elite that would be exploitative, but that would create industries, etc. We do not have that. It's basically we import and we sell it at a higher price. That's it. This is the economy of Haiti. And then you have a few banks that are basically in the business of money laundering and in the business of getting remittances to give them to the Haitian population. So there is no
Yes.
real productivity. It is a system that is very much a system without a material foundation. And the country is falling apart.
Yes. Now, you wrote a book recently, I think, and it's called Haiti Trapped in the Outer Periphery. And there is a review here which, captures very well the thoughts shared in your book, or some of the thoughts, I should say. And they're saying for social scientists, considering the case of Haiti, the legal or normative functions of the state become a real challenge, since the country functions within the dysfunctional zone that Robert Fatton Jr., which is you, of course, identifies as the extreme margin. He refers to this as the outer periphery. Fatton's work focuses on the catastrophic neoliberal agenda in Haiti and the way in which the country or the world economic system has contributed to engaging the country within a hyper-marginal zone. Now, when we talk about the neoliberal model that Haiti is following, how is that different from the neoliberal model that the Dominican Republic is following, that Jamaica is following, Trinidad, and all of us in the region? How is it that Haiti has not been able to follow the modern and maintain some level of stability that is sort of in the other parts of the region, like the DR, which is following that neoliberal model? How do you
Yes.
explain that?
Well, you see, at one point I was following the theories of two great social scientists. One is Immanuel Wallerstein, and the other is Samir Amin, an Egyptian economist. And they had talked about a world economy where you had essentially three different zones: the core, that is to say, the industrialized West. Then you had the so-called semi-periphery, that is industrializing nations who may or may not make it, and then the periphery, which was actually at the bottom of that world economy. Now, when I looked at Haiti, I said, there is another zone. Because if you look at the relationship between Haiti and the Dominican Republic, it's a relationship between a core and a periphery. And in fact, the Dominican Republic is a periphery of the United States and of
Mm-hmm.
Western Europe, etc. So there
Mm-hmm.
is a need to look at a different zone that has fallen literally from the periphery to become the outer periphery. And those are zones of surplus labor, zones that are essentially left to themselves, except if there is a revolution or something like that. They do not want that. So Haiti relationship with the Dominican Republic is very much what existed between the periphery, the semi-periphery and the periphery vis-à-vis the core. We import a lot of stuff from the Dominican Republic. What do we give to the Dominican Republic? Cheap labor. And when that cheap labor is no longer needed, it's expelled to Haiti. I mean, last year, for instance, there were about 225,000 people of Haitian descent who were forced to exit Haiti, I mean, exit the Dominican Republic to return to Haiti, which has had a lot of problems for the Haitian government. They don't have the means to receive and welcome that population. So we have similar patterns. You talk about, for instance, the Trump wall between Mexico and the United States. Well, the Dominican Republic has built a wall between the Dominican Republic and Haiti at the frontier. So you have really a feeling of total exploitation. This is the outer periphery. And there are plenty of regions in the world that are falling into the outer periphery. That fall is not inevitable. You can fight it, but it's extremely difficult because of the power of the major imperial nations and the interests of the domestic elite. So, and Haiti doesn't produce anything, it imports everything. And its labor is surplus labor that goes to the Dominican Republic when needed and may go back to the United States when needed. This is the system. So you have a group of countries that are actually controlled to a large degree by the international community. Haiti, since the fall of Duvalier, has really
Mm-hmm.
become an external appendix of the world. I mean, you had the United Nations basically occupying the country, government selected by the international community. There is no real army, there is no police. The state
Mm-hmm.
is not functioning. I mean, if you look at the
Yes.
situation in Haiti
Yeah.
now, the government controls very little in Port-au-Prince, and the gangs control territories. They don't produce anything. They are very repressive, but by controlling territories, if you want to move from one area to another, you have to pay a tax, not to the government, but to the gangs. If you want to move oil, you have to pay the gangs. If you want to go from Port-au-Prince to Cape Haitian or Port-au-Prince to Les Cayes or Jérémie, you have to go to the highways. And who controls the highways? The gangs. So you have a system where you have territories that do not produce anything, but territories where people want to enter or exit, but in order to do so, they have to pay a tax to the gangs. This is a really system that leads to complete catastrophe, as we've seen in Haiti, and to
Yes.
external interventions, because now the problems created by that kind of political economy are being so-called resolved by the implementation of external forces. Now you are going to have the so-called gang suppression force, and no one knows what the heck that gang suppression force is going to do. It's been in the works for more than a year, and they haven't yet done much. So we don't know what the role of that gang suppression force is going to be. Supposedly is to squash the gangs and allow for elections, but I don't see how you can have elections in Haiti given the this climate of utter insecurity. We don't have the logistics to have an election either. To me, the elections, if they take place anytime soon, it's going to be a business. Yesterday, the government that has no legitimacy really, and the Electoral Council voted a law whereby the elections would cost $120 million. You can imagine what is going to happen to that $120 million. I'm not quite sure that is going to go into the functioning of the electoral process. A significant amount of that colossal amount of money for a country like Haiti is going to go into the pockets of many businessmen and politicians.
Yes. I think this is a person here is making a very important point that Syrians are considered brown in some instances, but they are also considered Muslim. So I think the United States has a problem with conflating race, religion, ethnicity, and and culture. What would you say about that, Mr.
Well, I
Professor?
totally agree. I totally agree. I think there is a when you see when you deal with race, when you deal with religion, you can make a cocktail, a
Yes.
cocktail that serves the purposes at one point and doesn't serve the cocktail at another point. So you mix it whenever it's convenient. We emphasize religion when it's convenient. You emphasize race when it's convenient. You emphasize class. I mean, it's really an amalgam of contradictory things, but you make it a whole so it serves the interests of those in power.
Yes, yes. And yeah, yes. And there's another important question that I'd like to, we're going to go to the comments very shortly. Can Haiti's economy be transformed without fundamentally changing the country's political power structure? Because, you know, if they don't have a good economy, then people are just not going to stay, just like you see in Jamaica and other parts of the Caribbean. How is it possible to transform Haiti's economy without uprooting the political structure?
You need to uproot the political structure, and that is a very complicated business. What we've had since Jean-Claude Duvalier is a neoliberal model whereby Haiti would supply cheap labor and would be in the business of, you know, uh, building, in particular in the apparel industry, baseball bat, etc., for the American market. The idea is that once you add that small business boom, things would spill over into a major economic transformation. I mean, in the late 1970s, the idea put forward by the World Bank was that Haiti was going to become the new Taiwan. Now, that obviously it never happened and it will not happen. That model doesn't work because if you try to impose it on Haiti, what you have is the competition with other countries that have exactly the same model. So it's a race to the bottom. And Haiti is at the bottom. This is what I call also about the outer periphery. So, for instance, immediately after the earthquake in 2010, Hillary Clinton came to Haiti and said, we are going to change the economy of Haiti. So they went into the north of the country and they had that idea, small industries, export for the United States, etc. So what happened is that they had the same plan in El Salvador and in Guatemala. The idea then was, well, labor in Haiti is cheaper, so let's move the Salvadoran little industry and Guatemala industry to Haiti. And then they started moving it. But then political unrest started and they moved out immediately. That industrial zone that was created next to Cape Haitian was supposed to offer by now 200,000 jobs. You have barely 5,000 people employed at the moment. And it's very difficult for them to export stuff because of the security business. So this is not going to work. if you don't change the political structure, if you don't change the model of economic development, if you don't adopt a paradigm that is quite different from the neoliberal one, I'm afraid that you're going to fall into the same trap. I think it's Einstein who said, if you keep repeating the same thing, you're going to get the same result. If you expect something else, you're an idiot. And that's very much what we are saying. Because what is offered to Haiti is very much the same neoliberal model. I mean, there was a conference last week where they called into the Europeans, and the European promised that they're going to invest in Haiti. I mean, this is really, a series of platitude, because they are not going to invest in Haiti if there is political unrest. They are not going to invest into a country if you don't have electricity. In Haiti, you don't have electricity, basically. If you don't have your own power sources, solar or some gas oil system, you don't have electricity. Most people don't have electricity. So how can you industrialize without electricity? And my personal belief is that you can't transform Haiti if you don't transform the agricultural sector. And that's very difficult. And when I'm talking about transformation of the agricultural sector, I'm talking about producing food for the local population by Haitians themselves. And this is not looking at a backward form of peasant life, not at all. Because if you want to do that, you need to build irrigation, you need to have electricity, you need to produce fertilizers, you need to create a system of an agricultural system where you redistribute land. And that is where, you have that shock between aspirations to transform Haiti and economic and political realities that are in charge of the country. The two are very much, at loggerhead. And if you don't change the power structure, it's difficult to see how you're going to change the economy and the lot of the vast majority of Haitians.
Yes. We spoke about briefly about the Zionism and the Zionists on the Haitian, the policies that are being, implemented in the United States. Very few people speak about the role of the church, the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican, because, when you look at Trump's administration, it's the most Catholic representation that we've ever had in the history of the United States. Now, you would think that the Pope, which speaks about immigrants and that the United States and other countries should be kind to immigrants, that they would be speaking on behalf of the Haitians and what is happening and fighting against a system. In fact, as you know, 6 of the 9 judges on the U.S. Supreme Court are also Roman Catholics. Why aren't we hearing much from them? In fact, they control the U.S. Supreme Court.
Well, the Catholic Church is deeply divided. You have a wing of the Catholic Church which is very progressive, the so-called liberation theology, which was at one point espoused by Aristide and by many priests in Haiti. The so-called option of the poor. But you have a very conservative wing of the Catholic Church that does not want any transformation. And there are contradictions. I was astonished to see that in the Supreme Court, I forget her name, she's a Catholic. She has 2 kids she's adopted from Haiti. And she voted to repeal the TPS. That is astonishing. This is someone who brings 2 Haitians from very poor background, and then she says, well, the hell with the other ones. How do you explain that? There are contradictions that are bewildering. But the Catholic side that is very conservative is very much against immigration. Now, what has been fascinating to see is that there is kind of a clash between the existing Pope, who's American, and the Trump administration. And yesterday, there was a fascinating moment when the Pope went to the tip of Western Europe to welcome immigrants. And that was really to defy the United States, the Trump policies. because he did that on the 250th anniversary of the independence of the United States. And he clearly indicated that what the Trump administration was doing was wrong morally. So there are contradictions within those institutions. But Trump has no real love for the the Pope. As he put it, he likes his brother, who's a MAGA person living in Florida. He thinks that the Pope is kind of almost some sort of communist agent. And he said that again last night. He said that if you subscribe to Marx, then you cannot be an American. In other words, either you are like me, Trump, or you are not an American. So there is that kind of ideological belief that many people in his administration obviously share.
Yes, yes. Now, Claude is saying here, Claude is a traitor, and Ariel Henry also a traitor, and the Kenyans didn't help. Now, I also read recently that even the great priest there, Aristide, that John Burton Aristide, that his whole the security apparatus were given to him by Washington, from the Pentagon. So, when we talk about democracy in Haiti, and people like to say that there was some democracy during the Aristide regime, do you think Aristide was sincere? Do you think that it was a controlled democracy? Or do you think Aristide was he was trying, but was constrained by the US and external forces?
I think you have to establish a difference between Aristide when he came to power, the first 7 months of Aristide, where I think he had a genuine idea about changing the nature of Haitian society. And this is why he was removed. He was overthrown by the military and by the ruling classes of Haiti. Now, when he went to exile, things started to change, because one has to remember that Aristide came back to power literally on the back of 25,000 Marines. And how can you remain a radical if your power is ultimately dependent on the US Marines? And what happened is that immediately after he came back, he had to acquire to the World Bank and to the IMF policies. Now, he says that he never signed that, but that's not true. He signed those documents. That was one of the things he had to do in order to be returned to power. But it's very difficult to say I'm a revolutionary and then you come back to power, literally, because the Clinton administration sent to support that 25,000 Marines. And since then, the policies of all Haitian governments have remained very much, prisoners of the IMF and the World Bank. That's the reality. And then, with Aristide, there was kind of a degeneration of the Lavalas movement. And one can understand what happened. There was the ruling class, the military opposed to him. When he returned to Haiti, he disbanded the army. And one could understand that, because the army had always been opposed to any significant changes in the structures of power. But that led to the kind of militarization of civil society. In other words, Aristide started having his own militias, his own gangs. The private sector, seeing that, said, well, we are going to have our own. And every important political party and economic elite decided we need our own gangs. And that started the process whereby Haiti became a country literally controlled by gangs in the capital city. So, but people operating in Haiti face immense constraints. It's very difficult. It's very easy, for instance, for me to talk about those things. I'm sitting, very comfortably in the United States. If I were in Haiti, you don't know what I would do. I mean, things are very tough I have friends who came back to Haiti after the overthrow of Jean-Claude Duvalier, and all of them were committed to transform Haiti. Now, many of them left, but some of them stayed. And I remember talking to a good friend who was very radical at the time. And I said, "What the hell is happening, man? How can you explain that kind of, you know, uh, 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 degeneration of the system?" And he looked at me, he said, "Robert, listen, I have 4 kids. The salary, you are a cabinet member. Salary of a cabinet, the official salary, is $3,000. 4 kids, I want to send them to the university in the United States. You know, if I want to send them, I don't know, to Princeton or Harvard or a state university, it's 10, 20, at that time it was $30,000. How am I going to pay for it?" I said, "I don't know. This is not." He said, "Well, ask you the question. What am I supposed to do?" And he said, "I'm not justifying morally what I'm doing. And I'm not," and he was, in comparative terms, he was a very honest guy. You know, he was not just taking everything. But those are the constraints. And when you get into the system, it devours you. It's like a, I mean, I remember talking to someone from the Lavalas movement. He said, "C'est une machine infernale." You know, it's an infernal machine. You go into it to stop it from going to, to support the elite, but then the machine takes you and it crushes you.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are massive constraints operating. It's not easy to transform a country. It's extremely difficult. And I talk, very critically, and I'm convinced that I'm right to be critical. But on the other hand, I have to also be humble. I don't know what would be my conditions if I were back in Haiti, and what would be my choices. So sometimes I even say moving out of the country is not just an escape. It's also there's a kind of a coward movement because you're afraid of what you might do if you stay, especially from people like me who are from the elite and cannot take what the elite is doing. So there are personal things, there are class things that operate, and those are very complicated things to resolve. After all, we are, we're just human beings. But Haiti needs to change drastically internally. And hopefully people from the outside can help that transformation. But here you have also a problem because many Haitians in Haiti do not like people from the diaspora. They like the remittances, that's for sure, but they think that if you go back to the country, you're going to take their jobs. And they think that you think you're superior to the people in Haiti. There is that problem. Uh, it started to change. I don't know if you're a football aficionado like 100% of Haitians, but the Haitian national team, as you know, made it to the World Cup. And basically, the team is a diaspora team. There was only one player who played in Haiti, only one. That team never went back to Haiti for the games that led to the classification of Haiti for the World Cup. So it was a diaspora team. But the country, both internally and externally, joined forces. And that was a nice thing that happened. I don't know if it's going to last, but it was some sort of Haitian pride becoming significant. The team did okay, nothing great, but there was that feeling that those were Haitians and they were from the diaspora. And that may lead to some transformations. So I don't know. But
Yes, yes.
yeah.
With regard to the gangs, as Super Batman is saying here, exactly now the gangs back in Port-au-Prince and take out politics in Haiti. Now, who is responsible for the gangs? Because it's the United States is giving us this impression that overnight Haiti was just, catapulted into a gang-related country, a gang country, a gangsterist country. But we have never seen Haiti and known Haiti to have been that. I mean, Jamaica was perhaps one of the countries before which was more associated with gangsterism. Why did Haiti just, have just finally be plunged into this gangsterist state, if you will? Who caused that? Who is behind that sort of gangsterism?
Well, as I've said, I mean, I think the gangs really appeared as a significant factor in Haitian political life as a result of the overthrow of Aristide, the
Yes.
consequences of that overthrow. In other words, first, the army was dissolved. So the other major elements of Haitian society, businessmen, political forces, political parties, the government itself, started to arm people in the poor areas of Port-au-Prince. And that started to have a life of its own. And what I'm suggesting is that while initially those gangs were controlled by those powerful forces, with the passage of time and the consequences of the political crisis, the economic crisis, and the earthquake, the gangs became increasingly powerful. And when MINUSTA left, which didn't resolve anything, it had contained, but it had not resolved anything in 2017, gangs started to emerge out very powerfully. And after the killing of Jovenel Moïse, the gangs, yeah, in 2021, the gangs became more powerful and they started to control territories. So they no longer needed, as it were, their sponsors. They became actually the sponsors of the sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
So, because as I've said, if you want to move from one area to the other in Haiti, you need to pay the gangs. There's no other way. So they don't control the economy as such because they control territory. But there's nothing in the territory. But in order to cross the territory, you need to pay them. And it's a system, they are the tax collector of Haiti now. Even the big businessmen, if they want to move oil or what they've imported to sell into Haiti, they need to pay the gangs. So the roles are to some extent reversed. And what is interesting is that most of the gangs don't have a political agenda per se. There's only one leader who has apparently a political agenda, and that's Jimmy Cherizier, who is barbecue, as is well known. But the others, they just want to collect money. They have their territory, and that's that. So it's very difficult to see how you're going to transform this reality uh, because the goal is to keep the territories and keep accumulating wealth. And many of the gang leaders are quite wealthy now. They live in very nice houses that they've built. They have swimming
Yes.
pool. I mean, it's just a very interesting phenomenon. They are still
Yes.
involved in the drug business, and clearly the amount of money that they have to have it, secure. So you can imagine what happens between gangs and banks. It's all very mushy-washy, as it were, and this is the reality. So the gangs have become a power unto themselves, and I'm not sure that the government can deal with the gangs. Uh, the gang suppression force, which is supposed to materialize, but it's taking a very long time to materialize, and I don't know if they have the capacity to defeat the gangs.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if the gangs would surrender easily. Would there be an amnesty? I have no idea how going to resolve the crisis. And there is a tragic phenomenon about the gangs is that a lot of the gang members are very young kids. I mean, there is no other way of putting kids, 8 to 15, and they have, a gun in their arms. And what do you do? I mean, this is very traumatic that you have a huge number of young people who know only one thing, and that's the rule of the gun. Uh, and then you have people who try to resist or who have moved or traumatized. The sexual abuses are massive. Women have suffered considerably as a result of the gangs. So you have a traumatized population. It's not just the existing violence, it's the trauma, the mental trauma, living with the fear of being assaulted, living with the fear that tomorrow you need to leave your house. And as I've said, you have a huge number of Haitians who have had to relocate in Port-au-Prince or move to other areas of the country. So it's a real dilemma. How do you resolve that? How do you resolve the trauma? How do you resolve the problem of violence? Those are huge issues, and frankly, I don't, I don't see a solution, and I don't have a proposed solution to it. But one can only hope.
I think that gangsterism, as far as I'm concerned, is, and that's for another live, is becoming the new form of government, if you will. If you're following what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago, also, they're reporting that that is a serious problem. Jamaica for many years, and I can call many other Caribbean nations. So it seems, and that would be for a different live, that something is fundamentally wrong, or institutions being broken down and being replaced by unlawful elements. I don't know. And if it is something that is staged, something that is intentional, we have to really seriously look and study that matter. Now Z is
Yes.
suggesting, he's asking the question, what do you suggest, Professor, is the best thing the Caribbean can do across language barriers to become more resilient to the disturbing threats we are seeing coming out of the US?
In terms of language barriers, it's interesting. In a weird way, I don't think they are as significant as they used to be. Because many people in Haiti now, if you look at Creole, the language that most Haitians speak, it has been to a significant degree anglicized. It's not the same Creole with which I grew up, 60 years ago. It's not. It was very French. Now it's very American. And similarly, there are plenty of Spanish words that are introduced. And many Haitians, because they move out of Haiti, speak Spanish, they speak English. So the language barrier, I don't think is as significant. Uh, when we are talking about Haitian immigration, you have to look also at Haitian immigration to Brazil, to Chile, to Ecuador, to Mexico. You have to look at Haitian immigration to the Bahamas and other islands in the Caribbean. And those Haitians now speak English. They understand English. Haitians in the United States, in the last 30 years, most of the Haitians have had kids, they speak only English. I've had a few Haitian kids coming, well, they're Americans now. They were born in the United States. And I said, do you speak Creole? He said, un petit peu. They speak English. This is something that you saw. I'm talking about football again. The Haitian national team, many of the players didn't speak Creole.
They
They spoke
do.
French, or they
Mm-hmm.
spoke English, which is very interesting. So I don't think language as such is a significant barrier. Now, in Haiti itself, language is still a thing of power because all Haitians speak Creole, but not all Haitians speak English fluently or Spanish fluently. Members of the ruling groups tend to speak English, French, and Spanish.
Yes. And
And
it's incredible. It's incredible how they learn them so fast. I am always,
absolutely.
flabbergasted when I look at them and how they learn these languages so rapidly and sound like a native.
Yeah, no, it's really very interesting to see. But as I've said, language is still a class thing in Haiti because people from the ruling class speak French fluently, English fluently, and Spanish fluently. One of the interesting things too is that many members of the Haitian ruling class, given the crisis, They don't just move to Miami, they move also to the DR. And they have their businesses in the DR, which is a fascinating issue. And they are collaborating with the DR government to hopefully reestablish some businesses in Haiti. Whether that happens, I don't know. But there is kind of an internationalization of the ruling class. And obviously of very poor people because they need a job. And they move to the Bahamas, Bermuda, etc., or they move to Latin America, or they move to the United States. There's a very large contingent of Haitians in Chile. I mean, significant. I mean, it's not clear how many, because Chile and Brazil, up till very recently, had open borders for Haitians. That has changed. But you have plenty of Haitians who move to Brazil and who move to Chile. And the idea was that they would move there and they would go up to Mexico to get into the United States. But many of them have stayed in Chile and have stayed in Brazil. So you have a new diaspora being built in those Latin American countries.
Yes. Now, Super Batman is also referring to the transitional government that is in Haiti now. He's saying that's the puppet of the American and the ruling class, the domestic ruling class in Haiti. I think that is probably an established knowledge, or is it more complicated than he's describing it?
I think there's a lot of reality into what he says. On the other hand, when you're a politician in Haiti, you can maneuver too around the United States. But it's a very difficult maneuver. As I've said, you had Claude, Ariel Henry that were just dropped. And if you look at the previous transitional presidential council, many of those leaders thought that they would remain in power. And no, they didn't. And to a large degree, that's because the United States and the French said, no, you're not going to stay. But they tried to maneuver. And we have the current prime minister, who is to a large degree the man of the United States. How long is he going to remain the man of the United States? I don't know. The United States wants elections.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the prime minister doesn't particularly want elections, not only because he must know that if you have elections, they are going to be so bad that they are not going to resolve anything, but also because he wants to remain in power. Because if there are elections, according to the agreements that they had signed, he cannot be a candidate. And being a prime minister is a very sweet deal in terms of the privileges, etc., etc. So I'm not sure how much of a prisoner he is, but clearly if the United States decide tomorrow morning that this government should go, the government will go.
Yes. Now, this is one of perhaps the most important questions that they're presenting to you, Professor. Is it possible, is it impossible to dismantle the ruling class of Haiti, and what conditions must exist for that to happen?
It's very difficult to dismantle the ruling class, not just in Haiti, everywhere. But it's extremely, extremely difficult. It's not impossible. I mean, history is full of moments that surprise us, whereby you say, oh, those people are entrenched, and suddenly the whole building collapses just like that. We've had plenty of examples of that. And the history of Haiti shows that what we might think is impossible is actually possible and has happened. I mean, if you were to tell me in 1802 that slaves would revolt, they would defeat the most powerful army in the world, the Napoleonic armies, a bunch of slaves, not really trained in warfare, against an army of 50,000, I would tell you, you must be a lunatic. And what happened? We defeated them. But then the issue is, you can defeat those powers. What comes next? And this is where there is a problem. We need to have a clear idea of how we want to reconstruct the country so that the problems that we see now are not reproduced. It's something that is very easy for a new group of people, however well-intentioned they might be, to fall into the pitfalls of power. Enjoy power, enjoy the benefits. So you need to impose limits to that power. You need to have some popular, railguards against the transformation of that group that comes with good intentions from becoming the old. And we've seen that throughout history. I mean, if you look at the history of Africa immediately after decolonization, there was a feeling everything is going to change. And no, neocolonialism established its roots. So you have to be very careful. It's not an easy thing, but it's not impossible because, as I've said, things happen that we couldn't imagine would eventually happen. But those are rare moments, and we have to savor them. At the moment, unfortunately, I don't see it. But there was one thing that you mentioned about the gangs, and this is a very contradictory phenomenon, but it's not something new. If you look at the history of the early European states, they were basically gangs taking over different parts of the. If you look at Italy, for instance, they were essentially gangs. We don't call them gangs because I'm not quite sure what, but it was basically the same thing. And the gangs started to develop states, governments, and gradually those mafia states, as it were, became legitimate states. Now, I don't know if that is going to happen, but if you're controlling territories, at one point it may well be that you are going to create an organization to run those territories. At the moment, you are just extracting resources. But when you extract resources, you inevitably need new organizations. And if you want to continue to extract resources, you need to have some legitimacy. So you may have to give some power to the people who are in those areas. And if you're starting to do that, they will ask you for more, schools, clinics, etc. So in the worst condition, you could imagine a very different future. But that is a very complicated business. And I'm not sure that we have a foolproof way of getting there.
Yes. Now, before you go, we have two more questions because I know you have to leave now. The Haitian diaspora, how are they trying? I know they're very active, right? It's not like a talking shop like you see in Jamaica. How are they actively trying to, stand up to the United States against the policies that they are actually seeking to, to destroy Haiti? Are they effective enough? This powerful diaspora that is in the United States, are they, and in Canada also, are they trying to, prohibit the United States, stop it from doing what it's doing?
I think the diaspora has kind of a checkered record. On the one hand, for instance, when Haiti had been overthrown in the 90s, the diaspora really mobilized and to some extent forced the Clinton administration to do what it did. But on the other hand, the Clinton administration did what it did, but also controlled the process in ways that we may not have wanted. So there is that problem. More recently, clearly, the TPS has mobilized significantly the Haitian communities in New York, in Florida, and in Massachusetts. And they are trying to have allies in Congress. And there are people like Ariana Presley, who's a congresswoman from Massachusetts, who has been extremely good in terms of defending and protecting Haitian interests. But this is not a mass movement. On the other hand, there are alliances that are being created, as I've said, not only by people who have the best interests of the Haitians and don't want them to go back into a devastated country, but because of economic reasons, want the Haitians to stay. And as I've mentioned before, it's because they want Haitians to work in the hospitals, in the healthcare business, in the elderly care, etc. Because if they exit, this is a huge problem for those states. Because Haitians, unfortunately, are underpaid It's cheap wages. And if you force them to go, who in the heck in the United States is going to come to help Americans themselves? So and I wouldn't be surprised that peculiar coalition might well end up to successfully refute the Trump administration and prevent the deportation of the Haitians. This is my hope. And people can contribute to many of those Haitian community or grassroots movements, etc. So there is something in the diaspora that is really being mobilized, and the TPS has been really the core issue at the moment, and hopefully will lead to more solid alliances, more solid groups, because previously the diaspora was very divided.
Yes. Now, last question, and as you go, what lessons can we in the Caribbean, those people in America also, what lessons can we learn from all of these, what the policies of the U.S., is it going to have serious consequences for the Caribbean and for U.S. citizens and non-citizens as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, if deportations become the norm, then it's a serious problem for the economies of the Caribbean and for the economies of Africa, because you're talking about a lot of West Africans who are in the same situation. You're talking about, it's not just Haitians, you have plenty of others from the Caribbean in the United States. They may not have a TPS, but if you erode the TPS, the next thing that you'll see is that the green card, the visas, all of those things will start to become just paper. One good thing that has happened is the whole business about the birthright citizenship that has been consolidated by the Supreme Court. But there are lots of talk that if you have a green card, and if, I mean, Rubio, has said that a green card may not be enough if you're in the United States, because the government of the United States may think that you are not a loyal, resident. And what do they mean by loyal? I have no clue. That becomes a very subjective and political way. So, the TPS is important, it's critical, because once you demolish the TPS, then you move to the next step.
Yes.
And a lot
Thank
of
you so
people
much.
who don't care about the TPS might, in fact, might suffer in the future because they didn't defend the TPS.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor Fatton, and we hope
Well,
that
thank you very
another
much.
time we'll be able to join us to explain what really is happening behind the scenes and what implications it will have for the Caribbean, for Haiti, and for the wider world. I look forward to seeing you again on this platform, on this channel.
Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Oh, same here. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and we want to thank Professor Fatton for his time, for joining us this morning. I'll just stay a little while with you and see some of the comments that you have on the platform as Professor Fatton is leaving the stage. Or if you want to stay for Professor, that's okay. But if you want to go,
I have something to do.
Yes, you can go. So we'll have.
Thank you again very much. I really
same
enjoyed
here.
the
Same
conversation.
here.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so we are going to have okay, so we're back. We're back now with the channel. Okay, so let's look at some of your comments that you have. Some of you had some very interesting comments here, so we just want to look at them before we go home. The Syrians, Haitians, and Palestinians. Haitians are very much in bed with the mulatto ruling class. Yes, that is true. When you look at what is happening in Haiti, the Syrian, the Polish, right, they are involved and perhaps belong to the same class. It's a very good point you're raising. But the point though, why would they be sending home so many Syrians from the United States? That is something quite interesting, right? There's lots of contradictions in U.S. foreign policy. Then we have maybe we are allowing language differences to separate us from banding together to resist imperialist threats. The Francophone, Anglophone, Spanish, and Dutch Caribbean must unite. And you're right, but as he's suggesting, the Haitians are pretty much very language savvy, right? Most of them they are trilingual. They speak, as he suggested, Creole, French, and Spanish, right? And of course, English. Probably four. So the fact of the matter is that they're pretty much more language savvy than those of us here in the Anglo and perhaps other parts of the Caribbean. The Spanish speaking, the Hispanic, Caribbean Haitians are pretty much very versatile with language. He's saying there is nothing at all wrong with speaking just Creole. Right, but they often, for some reason, they learn languages. Even the ones who speak Creole only, they speak English too. They find some way to speak English. How they do it is something that is a mystery to many people in terms of how the Haitians are able to, just catch on to languages. I saw this YouTube clip, a clipping of a YouTube video of this guy, the Black American, was suggesting that he will see Haitians come to Florida, right? Let us say they came like a month ago. And then 2 months afterwards, they are speaking in the same lingo as an African American, or an American person. And he's wondering, how did that person not just come from Haiti, right? But that person speaking fluent language, English fluently after a short time, a relatively short time. How many of us could do that, right? How many of us could do that? Very few of us could do that. That's a talent that they have. It's more than just language. It's about the idea of every island for himself. Absolutely. It's definitely much more than language, because when you look at what is happening, even in the Anglo Caribbean, among Trinidadians, Barbadians, Jamaicans, and other fourth, we're not united too, right? We are not united, and many of us are ignorant of each other's states, and and all of that. So it's much more, as you're saying, as S&P, it's much more than language. It has to do with also that we are culturally ignorant, historically ignorant, and we are also selfish, as Sanpi suggested. Super Batman is saying we may use some French words, but with a Creole accent. Yes, I think that is largely Creole than it is French based. Remember, we read last week from history that most of the revolution, the Haitian Revolution, contained people mainly from Africa. Because the system was so brutal, ladies and gentlemen, that they were constantly replenishing these slaves. Because what happened is that, France was not willing to, just like America did, right, to have, descendants of the slaves. So they worked them to death, and then they would go back and they'll get fresh slaves. So when up to the point of the revolution, the Haitian Revolution, most of the people who fought were from Africa. So that is why their Creole would be more African-based than French-based. Very important that we understand that, because they were revolutionary, and many of the people who came from Africa were the ones who fought in the revolution and won these three major empires: the French, the British, and the Spanish. We have here Z saying what needs to happen is that our region must improve its intralinguistic diplomatic framework to include all peoples of the Caribbean. Yes, but to some extent, many of our Caribbean people are also not interested in what is happening in other parts of the Caribbean. Look at this live. Initially, it was like 20-something people. Then it dwindled down to just 4 ago. So people are not interested in learning cultural differences and other things. It's just what we are, mainly because we think that we are just living within our own world. Right? And that is how it is. The United States citizens don't want to learn other language too. So particularly those of us who study English and who are native speakers of English, we don't want to learn other languages for some reason too. We think that we control the world and we're speaking an international language, and we limit ourselves by not understanding or gaining a broad understanding of the world itself by just being monolingual. Right? So many of us will not want to do that because of how we have been acculturated. Super Batman is saying the Dominican Republic ruling class are cruel to my people. The thing about the Super Batman, bro, is that they work together though. The Haitian and the Haitian ruling class and the Dominican ruling class work together. And that is really strange. So you find a lot of the Haitian ruling class, they own to a lot of extent, to a large extent, a lot of the assets and prime properties in the DR, right? And they send their children to private schools in the DR. So the Haitian ruling elites, along with the Dominican ruling elites, are one of the same, right? And they get along, but they don't want the masses of Dominicans and the masses of Haitians to get along, because that's how they maintain their class structure. Right, to the Dominican population. And then we have Sanpi saying our mentality about keeping it good with America is another issue. Our islands are quick to turn on each other, and that is a crucial point. Whenever we need to stand up for each other, we don't do it. So what we see happening in Haiti now, oh, Haitians have to fix their problem, as if we don't have any problem. How is it that Jamaicans were sent to Haiti to help Haiti control its gang problems when Jamaica has a serious problem with gangs? Right? What role can we play if we have not corrected our problem in Jamaica? Yet still we were working along with the elites of the United States, the Pentagon, right, to keep down Haiti and to exploit that nation while we say that we're helping them. Okay, so we tend to look at each other's problems as, okay, that's a Haitian problem, that's a Dominican problem, that's a Trinidadian problem, and it has nothing to do with me. That is how we are selfish, and I'm happy that Sanpi is suggesting it's much more than language, it's much more than a language barrier. The backstabbing is horrible, absolutely, and I understand it because I've lived it. The vagabond gangs, right? And the gangs, and we are saying the gangs of Haiti are formed by the United States and Canada and France. They want to keep the country in this sort of instability so that they can always occupy, intervene when necessary, and just keep the country controlled under their jurisdiction. All right, so that is something that we have to understand. Now, Sanpi saying, but the government, the U.S. government, are the ones arming the gangs. And that is what's her name, Jemima Peer, has always been saying. And I think she was the one who brought out to me on previous program that we had here on this channel, that some of these gangs are also not, they're just a block away from the U.S. Embassy. So how can you have the so-called Haitian gangs that that U.S. is fighting against, yet these gangs, I think their headquarters, she probably was suggesting, said that they're just one block away from the U.S. Embassy? Does that make any sense? So it suggests to you that something is off. U.S. Embassy is caca. Yeah. And then we have here, don't forget Gilbert Biggio have a private ship port that he pay the Israelis and the gangs. Right. So the ruling class, because this guy, Gilbert Biggio, he is one of Haitian's primary ruling elites, right? So that is what he is actually saying here, right? Very important that we understand this. And let me say something to you. We have to read Haitian history. We've got to up our knowledge and understanding on the Haitian crisis, because it is my understanding of the Haitian history that has also led me to understand what is happening in the Caribbean, and understand that we don't control our affairs. We don't control our affairs. And that is what, so if you don't understand what is happening in Haiti, which many of you don't, okay, and don't also want to understand, okay, then you're not going to understand what is happening and what Andrew Holness is doing, or Miss Mia Motley in Barbados and the others are doing in the other parts of the Caribbean. I've been saying that to you and you don't want to hear, okay? Now, Haiti needs another military leader for discipline and other things, especially considering their history. Yes, but the United States doesn't want them to have one. right? And that's why it's occupying the country, so that it can prevent them from mobilizing themselves into a people who can protect themselves. Remember now that the United States understands rather the history of Haiti and revolutionary Haiti, not only the United States but the West, and they're doing everything within their power to keep them down, to suppress their revolutionary spirit, to break that revolutionary spirit, as it were. Very important that we understand this important point. Now we understand, and Annie's saying Syrians are considered whites only if they are Christians, but if they're Muslims, then they are considered the brown people of the Arab world. Very important that we understand, and it's a very important point you're raising here, Annie. Now, we have here the Super Batman bro saying cheap labor. Yes, that's what they want. They want cheap labor from the Caribbean. When you look at what is happening in the DR, as I'm suggesting to you, is a country to behold in terms of its development. And you look around and you wonder, how did they just, outpace the other Caribbean nations, and have become the premier Caribbean country in terms of economic development and industrialization too, from the neoliberal perspective. But when you look at it closely, it is because of free and cheap Haitian labor. It is because of free and cheap Haitian labor, and that is how the DR has been able to be transformed, to have morphed into this predominant industrialized economy based on the neoliberal model. But you cannot compare DR to Jamaica in terms of development and a lot of the other Caribbean countries. We're way behind. We're way behind. So this is what they're suggesting now. If you can have some, what do you call it now, cheap Haitian labor, or cheap Haitian, or any Caribbean people, cheap labor in general, then this is how your economy is going to be built. It's slavery anew. It is slavery, neo-slavery, guys, and we have to wake up. Neoliberalism, right, and that is what is useless. Very well said, Mr. Super Batman Bro. Fruit and vegetables and rice, right? Then we have rural history, and we have Z saying here, is there any evidence of the CIA actively orchestrating the instability in Haiti? If so, what's the reason for doing so? I think that Professor Fatton said it. What we have to understand is that the Haiti was a country that was revolutionary. It had its revolution, and it kicked out three major world powers at the time: France, and the Spanish, and also the British. These were the three major empires that Haiti fought, and these were enslaved people who fought against, along with the great general Toussaint Louverture, and of course, Jack, Dessalines. So because of that, the United States has always remembered, and the West, not only the United States, but including Britain. And because, C.L.R. James, in his book, The Black Jacobins, he wrote that many of us think that what was it now? It was not necessarily because Great Britain lost its empire, not necessarily because of the end of slavery and World War II, but the seeds started from the Haitian Revolution that actually fractured the British, because they fought tooth and nail. The British fought because they really wanted that island of Hispaniola, because it was much bigger than Jamaica. And they understand that before the Haitian Revolution, Haiti was the most profitable. Haiti was the most profitable slave plantation. The most profitable. The French made lots of money from that island. So the British were saying, if we only could get that island, we would end up also replacing France as this predominantly rich, wealthy, colonizer, and then would make it, because Jamaica was there, but it wasn't as big as Hispaniola, and we could, import many slaves and become richer, wealthier, and expand the empire. Think about it, that Great Britain lost it to the United States as a colony in 1776. So now 1776 came, and then you had this Haitian Revolution in 1791 to 1804. These people, fractured all these great empires. That was too much Haiti was doing. Haiti actually was shaking up the world with an earthquake, an economic and political earthquake that happened in that country. Right? And we have to understand this history. And that is why the United States, to this day, and the West, not only the United States, Canada, and maybe behind the scenes Britain too. Right? But we know that the United States is primarily that one. Remember also, and we talked about it last week, that when Haiti got its independence in 1804, the United States never recognized them as a free country, even though the United States had just recently gotten its own independence from Great Britain and said it fought for it, whatever it did, right? That's what they say, and we just have to accept that history. So yes, from that basis, the CIA is involved secretly because they want to suppress it and to keep it down, because it would be the pride of all Black people that here we have in the Americas a Black state, which was the first free Black republic in the Americas. And it is functional, it is stable, it is prosperous, and they can't have that. They can't give that sort of impression to the world. Can they? No. What is sad is that many Black people, many Black faces are helping what you called white people to achieve that sort of impression. Right? And this is what is happening. Sad, but it is so. Okay? So it's a good question. As you're saying, Super Batman. CIA agents been doing operations with the Haitian Transitional Presidential Council consent. Now, back to Z, and as you're saying here, Super Batman Bro, the CIA is now responsible and has been responsible probably since 9/11 for U.S. foreign policy. The United States State Department is just a face, but it is not the operational machinery behind U.S. foreign policy. The main apparatus behind U.S. foreign policy is the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. And that is why we have all of this militarized foreign policy. If you don't do what they say, then your government can be taken out, as we saw what happened in Venezuela and in other countries. Okay, so this is no secret now. This is an open, sort of truth. It's secret. It's an open secret. Everybody knows that the CIA runs the U.S. government, right? And it is the primary institution for implementing U.S. foreign policy in the world. Right, so this is no secret now. We just have to keep our eyes, and everything open, be vigilant. Okay, and then we have here JJ saying the diaspora should invest in Haiti for billions in remittance every year. Now, when we invest in what? Remember now that the oligarchs control everything in Haiti. Right? So if we're investing, they're going to be involved in it. They're going to tell us what we can invest in because they control the infrastructure. Right? They control the infrastructure, the banks, right? They control the institutions, the schools, everything, the politics. So this is where so the most they can do, as you're suggesting, is probably educate their people, and hopefully their people will be educated enough, intelligent, wise enough to develop a sort of counter economy. I don't know how that can ever be done, because everything, all the boots are down there on Haiti. I think all boots are on the ground. CIA, the ruling elites, everything is there to keep these people from even functioning. Remember now, in the days of slavery, and I hear many people asking that question even today, why didn't the slaves kick back and whatever and kick the system before it ended? Remember now, it took us years, people, ladies and gentlemen. And sometimes we forget that is what happened, right? That it did not happen overnight. The slaves just kicked their slave masters and they were free. It took years, centuries, and not because they weren't fighting. That's why we read in history many slave revolutions. But did that one or two or three happen and then they were free? It didn't happen. It took sustained fighting. The question is, are we still fighting? Do we still have that spirit in us to fight? The Haitians are fighting, but are we uniting our efforts with them to fight against our colonial masters? That's the question. But to suggest that it's going to happen overnight and somebody can just go in and the diaspora and it changes like that, it does not work like that. And that is what happens when we get into these, podcasts. People just present to you black and white, night and day, and things are more complex than what we're seeing. Now, why are they doing this to the people of Haiti? What do they gain in doing this? Well, we talk about disaster capitalism. And we learned from disaster capitalism that every disaster is an opportunity for the elites. Now, they benefit from disasters just like slavery. We could ask the question, what did they benefit from enslaving so many people? Money. So the same thing that is happening, the disasters are profitable. When you have hurricanes, when you have earthquakes, and then they can go down there and they can extract wealth from the people, the land and everything that they have, they can kill. The more power. So there's lots of things. So economically, they can get rich from disasters. Power, the centralization of power, they gain more power through, they can militarize the entire country. And that's exactly what they're doing. That's the benefit. It will not be a benefit to you. And that is what we have to also study. We have to study the psychology of the ruling elites from your psychology. You and the ruling elites are not the same people. So what you think should merit some amount of human sympathy and empathy, they are not going to do it because they have a different mindset. And that is what sometimes that when I talk to people, they're talking to me as if they're talking to normal people about normal people, the ruling elites and our politicians do, or political elites. These people don't think like you and me. Okay, so that's what we have to understand. Then we have Aristide shouldn't have disbanded the army. As we're suggesting, he had no other choice because he was instructed to do it. Right? He was instructed to do it because the United States do not want to have an army, a Haitian army that could defend itself and its territory. So they disarmed the army. The army. The IMFK went in. All these neoliberal. They destroyed their rice sector. So Haiti is a situation there that tells us that the ruling elites, in collaboration with the United States and other foreign powers, can help to crush everything in our country. And that's exactly what they're doing in Barbados, in Jamaica, in Guyana, everywhere. If we understand and we can connect the dots, which many of us are not doing, and that is why we don't see lives as a Haitian life as important. Or some Haitian people are going to be deported. When you are deported and your family, then you'll understand that it is for you too. Then we have the truly he should have, and then we have the super bad number. As one of the Haitian was adopted during the fall of the Aristide regime. Oh, you were one of them. Wow. And that was a brutal regime. Right? That was a brutal regime. And Super Batman, bro, if you're willing to share your experience with us on the live one of these days, we'll make it for you, right? To give your experience of what took place, what happened, because we need to hear, and our Caribbean brothers and sisters are not so much educated on what is happening in Haiti, right? And are also not interested. That's the problem. It's a big concern because we're going to see a lot of the consequences being played out in other parts of the Caribbean. Why are we sending kids to Harvard? No, and nothing is wrong if people send kids to Harvard. Remember now that, all of these things, if you send your children to Harvard, it's just a tool, right? All of these things are just a tool. And maybe too at Harvard, you can connect with some people that you can help you to do what you want to do to free your people. All right. So these institutions, even though they're elite institutions, and I understand that, and they give lots of misinformation and they brainwash minds to think like the reigning elites. But if you are grounded before you go to Harvard, you can only use, just like you go to the United States to live, right? You don't have to go there to be a part of the racist infrastructure, but you can use the opportunities, economic opportunities that are given to you, educational opportunities to free some of your people, right? It might not be everybody, but you can use it to free some. right? That is your thing. So nothing is wrong with going to Harvard or Oxford or any of these institutions. Super Batman Bro says the stubborn is ridiculous. Yeah. And then we have here the stubbornness is, oh, yes, okay. And then we have, let's go, the JJI, take the jobs. The diaspora could help create more jobs, not take. Now, remember now that as he's suggesting, Haiti is no longer an industrialized society. It's a service-based economy, just like you have in Barbados and Jamaica. All right, we are not industrialized society. Probably only what you'll find in Trinidad, and even that in Trinidad is now being whittled away to. The industrial base in Trinidad is being whittled away, right? So when we talk about creating jobs, where, how? Because the whole system is controlled by these people who are just sitting down there and earning on their investment, right? So they have hotel industries, they have whatever in the service industries, and they make money. They make money, right? While there's no productive sector. So we would have to go back to rice. What if you try to, let us say that you decide that you want to create rice and sell it, to other countries, export it from Haiti. The reigning elites are going to stop you, right? They're going to stop you because you are going to be a competition, and they don't want any competition. It's a monopoly, right? There are some elites family that have monopoly of businesses. Not some, they all have monopoly on the entire system. That's what they're doing. So what they do, they divide themselves. So some might control that industry, another of them, another, because there are enough of them. So if there are 15, 21 of them, then they have the different industries, and you can only have so many industries and more, and no more. So the fact of the matter is that, they distribute themselves among the different industries, and that's how they control and they monopolize the system. Look at the communication system. How many communications, how many different services we have in the Caribbean and even in the United States, right? You don't have many options because they have monopolized, including in the United States, these industries, these productive sectors. Sanpi saying the U.S. armed the gangs and the ruling power in order to ensure that Haiti was always a state of chaos. That's the point. That's the point. The gangs control them, but the United States pretends as if the gangs are counterproductive or they're oppositional forces, when they're not. They're the oppositional forces. They work with the U.S. and that's the trick. That's deception that many people don't know. And then you say, "Oh yes, this person is helping me. Mimocli is helping, Haiti to restore order," when all she's doing is helping the U.S. to keep the people down. Now, Super Batman Bro is saying one of the family, the Bigios, yes, I've heard about him. And this is, and these are some of the others. Are you saying this is like Zanim? And they have the Polish and the Syrians and all these people controlling Haiti. The major roadways, they control that too. And the Dominican Republic also smuggles weapons and funds, right? Because they smuggle it from the U.S. into Haiti, right? So remember that's the DR doing that. It's a trafficking route. And then we have the Super Batman Bro said the government hides in Florida, right? They're in Washington D.C. too, right? And then we have the Ibrahim Bandi saying this is similar to Libya. France supported the gangs by paying bribes and taxes to gangs. Absolutely. I think that's what former PM of Italy was complicit in. Very deep-rooted corruption. And that is what it is. And Ibrahim, thank you so much, because this is how we have to make the connection, guys. So when you see what is happening in Libya or it's in Haiti, you can connect the dots with what is happening in your country. Oftentimes when I hear the level of analysis coming out of the Caribbean, I shudder because I realize that people are just not making the connect. They're just not connecting the dots. We're not connecting the dots. We think it's just something happening here in isolation. And it's not what is happening in isolation, right? Notice how the algorithm doesn't want to send the thing out because this is important information that you need to have at your disposal. Sanpi says, I said ruling class more specifically is the current government. Well, the ruling class also is inclusive of the government because they control the government. So yes, we understand your point. Super Batman Bro says, we are a traumatized people. Yeah, we are. We are. We are traumatized. Well, let me say something. If so many years, Super Batman Bro, in which Haiti has been suppressed and the Caribbean, as a whole, Black people as a whole, have been suppressed by a system, wouldn't we be so traumatized? Yes. They're trying to crush every spirit within you. And the first thing that they are trying with is information, that as a people too, we don't want to inform ourselves. And as a result of that, they can successfully overcome us, defeat us because of a lack of knowledge and the inability, or the lack of a desire and will to want to know. We're too much in this thing of partying, and maybe watching the football match now, the World Cup. And how is that going to help Haiti to grow? How is the World Cup going to help Jamaica to grow and help the people who are watching, the fans? How is it helping them to understand what is happening in the world? No, it's distraction, right? It's just distraction. We have here JJ saying the solution should be jobs. The government must support employment for these young people. But obviously, the solution now is AI, right? That is what Prime Minister Andrew Holness is saying, that we need to start moving things at the speed of thought. And who is going to be moving at the speed of thought but AI? Because we can't move things at the speed of thought. And they want things to be done quickly. And only AI is going to be able to get the things done at the speed that they're talking about. The Dominican Republic gang culture hiding from the media. Yes, and that is true. That is true. And that is something that they always expose something when they need to get something. So if the DR tomorrow, Super Batman Bro, if tomorrow the DR does something that the United States doesn't like, then it is going to what? Begin to unmask, as it were, its gang problems. But now it's doing what it wants the DR to do, so they don't have to expose it, right? Marcus is saying most Haitians know work very hard. Yes, that I know. I got you. That I know work very hard. They are hardworking people, extremely hardworking people, but it has nothing to do with the fact that their government wants to suppress them. And the better they're hardworking, the more they will be employed. Cheap labor, right? And you don't have to pay them much, and they're hardworking. And that is why the DR has prospered. The DR has prospered, right? And when you look at the level of development that is here, particularly in the urban centers, it's really unmatched. It's really unmatched. Now we have JJ. A lot of the members of the council didn't want to pick this prime minister, but was threatened by U.S. ambassador. Correct. And that is how they should tell us that the United States runs the show, right? Abraham is saying, yes, Argentina also called up a Haitian to its U17 team. Seems he arrived during or just after the earthquake. Now, if you look at the Haitian football team too, do you see any predominantly black person on the team? Seems to me that they're all looking mulattoes or, Arab-looking people. Well, based on what maybe I'm blind, maybe there were. Marcus is saying the difficulty is geography. As an island nation, Haiti must establish more ties with diaspora from Haiti and Africa. Well, it's not that easy, right? What we're saying now, there are structural problems that are, frustrating that from happening. Right, so we have to look at the structural problems, yes, and then we can look at other things. After those structural problems are taken, just like a home, if the foundation is shaky, you have to fix that shaky foundation first before you can talk about the walls and the other parts of the house, right? And that's what we are saying. We're trying to look at the structural problems and not the symptoms of the problems. Okay, Kiki Ramos, that's the guy who is on the thing. Then we have a lot of nurses in Florida and NY are Haitians. By the way, let me read you this before you go. You are right. You are so right. And let me see if this can come up, because they're talking about the economic setbacks that the United States is going to have for doing this, for implementing this Haitian thing. And it says economic and community impacts across Massachusetts, but it's going to happen in the entire United States economy. Advocates warn that ending TPS could have widespread consequences for Massachusetts workforce, schools, and healthcare system. But I understand, based on reading other articles, it's going to have ripple effects across the United States as a whole. At a Thursday press conference, U.S. Representative Ayanna Pressley said businesses lose workers, forcing some to close, while seniors could lose caregivers in an already strained system. And America will lose out on the talent, skills, and culture that immigrants contribute every single day. A May report authored by Senator Elizabeth Warren, Senator Ed Markey, and Presley found that ending the TPS for Haitian immigrants could worsen healthcare staffing shortages and jeopardize patient care across the state. Now, that's not what they're saying. Losing work authorization due to changes in humanitarian immigration programs. It also noted that an estimated 13,000 Haitian TPS workers work as nursing assistants. That's a lot. Desira said nursing homes are particularly vulnerable. The most important thing is the lack of staff. Will few people who will stay will eventually get burnt out. So this is going to have some serious impacts on Haiti, on the workforce, on the productive labor force in the United States. Okay, so that's what we have to understand. Okay, so we have here to the good stream. Thank you so much. And then we have the Siamese asking, Haitian slaves were defeated African warriors. Haitian slaves were defeated African warriors. What do you mean by that? What we understand is that most of the Haitian people who participated in the revolution were actually military people in Africa, right? They were part of the army. They understood what wars were about, and that is why they were able to fight off three major empires of their time. Yes, there were 25 viewers initially, right? And and then it just went down because people are just not interested in lives like these, because it's not going to help them to gossip. Then we have Michelle Forrester. It is very difficult to learn another language when you have the privilege of speaking English, right? I've studied Spanish throughout elementary and secondary school, and I continue to study Spanish now. Yeah, because we're not, if you are not in a situation where it is obligatory, right, where you have to do it, like the Haitians have to do it because that's how they have to make money, that's how they're going to survive, then you will not do it. Right, but in the case of the Haitians, they are migratory people because they have to leave their country to, in search of survival. So when they go to the DR or they go to another Spanish-speaking country, they have to get it quickly. If they go to the United States, they have to learn English quickly. So I think that it is for survival purposes more than, because the DR people in the DR are not as linguistically sharp as the Haitians are. And in Jamaica too, and other parts of the Caribbean. So you're correct, Michelle. I studied Italian in college. Learning a language is not an easy thing to do, right? Learning a language requires some serious discipline, particularly if you are going to acquire skills of a native speaker. It is not something easy to do, because learning a language is thinking anew. You are thinking about something differently than the language that you speak. So when you're talking about I am hungry versus the other one is saying I have hunger, tengo hambre, right? Then it's something different, it's a new way of thinking. And not to mention the poetry and all the things you have to study and literature that is so high, and science, and it's just too much. And people sometimes are just not willing to dedicate that amount of time to study something that is going to challenge the way how they view the world. Michelle Forrester is saying, I'm interested in being multilingual. You can just speak, and visit other countries that, that speak the language and in which you have to communicate. So you go there quite frequently and you communicate with them, you will learn. But if sitting with a classroom, having a book and studying just verbs and some, vocabulary will not help you to study or to master the language. Michelle Forrest is saying it's difficult to do so without being immersed, right, in the culture and the people of said language, but I am working towards it. Yes, and you still have to be motivated, because there are many Americans who live in foreign countries for years, right, and they still can't speak the language, not even a sentence, not even to ask the waiter or the waitress for a cup of drink or a cup of water, right? Still, they can't do it, right? Or they refuse to do it. And we have Michelle Forces, and also Spanish and Italian have dialects and have different words depending on which region you go. So language isn't stagnant. Absolutely, just like English. So we have, Jamaican Standard English, you have Barbadian Standard English, you have Trinidadian Standard English. So the same thing, you would have Spanish, the Spanish from El Salvador, Spanish from Panama, Spanish from, all these other countries that you have to study. And as you're saying, there are different dialects in different regions of the country, and you have to just adapt. It's just a willingness to adapt and to enjoy people. If you love people and you love learning new things about people, you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it because it's fun to learn that people express themselves in different ways and forms. Now, Michelle Forster is saying it's definitely not a flex to be only monolingual. It's not. It's not. And I think a lot of us, particularly those speakers of English, native speakers of English, we pride ourselves as being monolingual, right? And we also, when you study another language, it helps you to sharpen the skills within your own language, right? Because you have to learn the grammar, you have to even reflect about your things in your language. Like, why do we say this in the way we say it in English versus why said like that in Spanish or in Italian or in Portuguese, right? And it makes you a broader person. Do you know they say the more languages you study is the more persons that you become. It's like you are being transformed into different persons, right? Because it's your thinking, it's a new way of thinking, And he's saying you keep talking about the development of the DR, but when I talk to their people, they tell me it's dirt poor. We're judging the whole island on its tourist resorts. Well, they have more than tourist resorts. I think that they are more diversified than we are in the Caribbean. Well, you're right, because the DR model follows the neoliberal system. So you're finding that a significant amount of them are poor, but the development, what we think is development in terms of infrastructure, their infrastructure is more modern than many in the Caribbean. Yeah. So you need to come to Santo Domingo and you look and you go around and you're going to see that it is really a very sophisticated in terms of its development, right? Which we in the Caribbean, for the most part, are still lacking. And I've always, which leads me to the point where the British, they were just about building up their empire, and they would leave these planter class in these, so-called colonies in Jamaica and Barbados, while the Spanish people, they were more living here. They were settlers for the most part. So they developed to some extent, some infrastructure, which we did not develop, right? And you can see a difference in terms of development when you go to Panama and a lot of these Spanish-speaking countries, even in Africa. Right, even the Portuguese countries. I was seeing a video of Angola, the former Portuguese colony, and when you look at the state, the Luanda, I think that's the capital. It's really those there's nowhere in the Caribbean that looks like that, right? So the fact of the matter is that the Portuguese and the Spanish, they were more settlers in their colonies, and they developed some infrastructure for their class. And that's what you're saying here, Annie, for their class. And that is what, we need to understand, that this neoliberal development is not going to be development for everybody, but it will have the superficial development of a metro. Which Caribbean country has a metro? A modern metro system, Which one of us has that one? We don't. None of us has a modern metro system. And the DR has it. About 3 lines they have now. Plus they have the cable cars, right? Which Caribbean country has the cable cars? We don't have that too, right? So a lot of other things you see, and the skyscrapers here are second to none. So we have Michel Forrester. He started speaking about agriculture, and I wanted him to expound more on when Haiti had its own flourishing rice and industry, and the impact of the USA replacing Haitian rice with an unhealthy rice. Yeah, that's what happened in Jamaica too. So we understand, if you watch the video, the documentary Life and Debt, that the neoliberal system, it only did not affect Haiti, it affected the entire Caribbean. Remember now that we used to also export bananas to the United States and other countries, and through these agreements that the Caribbean governments entered into with the United States, then that all of that dried up. So the same thing with the rice, that Haitian rice, which is, I understand, was the best form of rice, right? And that they got lots of money. It was a great export commodity. But the whole globalization infrastructure changed all of that, right? Because the United States never wanted any Caribbean country. But look at the United States too. What is the United States of America producing? What is, you tell me, other than guns and maybe a few technologies here and there, but they're not producing anything too. The United States is also another service economy. So it's not only what it's doing in Haiti or to Haiti, but what it's also doing to its own people. Because as we've studied, what the empire does to other countries will be exported to its own country, to America itself, to the empire, to the motherland, if you will. Now, Annie said, they tell me as soon as you step off the resorts, you don't recognize the island. You often wonder if you just crossed the border into Haiti. That's not true, all right? Because the DR is a big country, right? You have to understand that the DR, and in comparison to Jamaica and to Trinidad, we are like just at a dot, right? In terms of it's a big country. Yes, you have elements of very, severe poverty, but you have a lot of communities of very wealthy people, right? Extremely wealthy people. And if you come here and you visit the country and you stay here long enough, you will see that. Marie saying, I think the CIA is clandestinely involved. As a side note, doesn't the USA have its eyes on Haiti's iridium? Yes. And other precious minerals and metals? Yes. And I think that people like the professor, Dr. What's his name? Johnson, right? Umar Johnson has spoken a lot of times about that, and that the United States wants to capture all these minerals, and that's why they're there, right? You think they're in Haiti because they just because they like the Haitian people. Whenever the United States wants to occupy a territory, whether it's Iran or it's Libya or it's Iraq, you have to have something. That's why they're obsessed with you. They're not obsessed with you because they love you and they love the region that you're in. They're there, and then they've never taken their eyes off Haiti because they want the control of their prime assets and minerals and metals. You're correct. JJ saying tourism, energy, food, construction, the diaspora could fund these things. But who controls the whole infrastructure? And that's what you're not understanding, JJ. We're saying here that it's the people who control the infrastructure who don't want you in the system. Go and watch Life and Debt. Life and Debt, the documentary in Jamaica. Now, when you watch that documentary, what some of these hoteliers were even saying, the local ones who owned hotels, they were saying that while they were there, the people, the billionaire class and their foreign enablers, they came and they took over the entire system. They monopolized the system. So you can't even gain any access. They give them subsidies, tax exemption, all the benefits that they give, they are not going to give to you. So they won't be giving all of these things to a Haitian, person, diaspora, no matter how rich that person might be. It's just that they want to control. The class, remember the class from, they're there to connect their different, brothers and sisters together. They're there to, suppress any form of competition, and anybody who is not a part of the class should not necessarily succeed or prosper. Michelle Farsi is saying, I heard the military taking the iridium. That's part of the reason they don't want a functional Haitian government, because iridium is actually worth more than gold, since it comes from outer space. And right, correct. And I think he continues here, and is useful in the development of arms. Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is the whole problem. This is why now they want to keep Haiti down, right? Because they want to control all the resources. That's why they want to keep Libya down and all the other countries that we find themselves in, including Iran. Then we have Marie saying, Southeast Haiti has the second largest reserves in the world, the second largest iridium reserves in the world. Very good. And very thank you for highlighting that. Thasi saying, you cannot negotiate with these elites. They are not like us. And I'm happy you're saying that, because we think that when we talk about elites, they look humans, but they are humans, but they have a different mindset. And we have to study the psychology of how they think, right? They're not thinking like you. Then we have Marie Antoinette is saying, according to an article by Graham G. Henry, October 6, 2021, the second largest iridium deposits are found in Southeast Haiti. Thanks for that fact, Marie Antoinette. And then we have, again from Marie, that's true. The best chemotherapy nurses in a U.S. hospital were Haitians. They were quite dedicated, knowledgeable, and hardworking. Absolutely, they are. And then we have Dominica has cable cars. Okay, I think they just got it right. I think they just got their cable cars. Yeah, but they don't have any what do you call it now, metro system. And the railway system that they are developing here in the DR is going to be like nowhere to be found, even sometimes in the US. Do you know that their metro system in the DR is even looks more modern than what you have in the United States? Cleaner and looks more sophisticated, if you will. Then we have San P saying USA is not productive at all and is slowly dying. Right. At least, the democratic state is dying, and the people, in terms of the wealth that the people own, are dying. Now, the billionaire class, are they dying or are they getting wealthier? When Haiti was the most profitable colony in the Western Hemisphere, was Haiti dying? No, Haiti was in its heydays when it actually had its revolution, right? So that is what we have to understand. So the billionaire class, they were having fun. The Haitian planters were having fun. They were having a great time, while the Haitian slaves were toiling for them. So could it be that the American elites and other elites of the world are having fun while we are suffering? So they are not dying, or we are the ones who will have to get them to die. And that's what the Haitian people did. They got up and started to cut off necks, and and said, look here, we're tired of the system, right? And that is how that died. But the Haitian planters at the time of the revolution were prospering. They were at the pinnacle of their prosperity. Okay. Now, then we have JJ saying, I understand what you're saying. I'm trying to say that's more of us than them. We can beat them. Well, it would be nice if majority always work. And that's what we're finding out, that you can have a majority, right? But what quality are the majority, right? If you have, like, say, a billion, we have how many billions of people in the world? We have is 8 billion, right, people in the world, right? So if you have 8 billion and you just have, let us say, a million, whatever class, and they control the entire ecosystem, the media, the economy, the military, the education system, the healthcare system, everything, then it's going to be hard for you to beat them, right? Unless we don't comply. I think our greatest chance of beating the system is not to comply. Now, how do we comply? We're not going to buy their phones. Okay, you are down in Haiti and exploiting the Haitians. I'm not buying your phone. I'm not buying your bed. I'm not buying your clothes, your brand name clothes. I'm not buying your brand name, we call it sneakers or whatever you have. And many of these things that we have in our homes, we purchase them from the same people who are exploiting us. And we are enriching them, right? So we will have to come up with an agreement that we are going to have some suffering. We're not going to live conveniently as we're living now, so that we will be able to destroy them. Destroying them or getting rid of them and enabling them through our purchases, right, will not allow us to destroy them. The book there, I read you an excerpt last week where I told you that during the Haitian Revolution, there were about 450,000, I think, Haitians who were slaves at the time living in Haiti, right? And 150,000 were killed of that 450,000. So it meant that 150,000 said, we are going to fight until death. Will we give up our convenience? Will we give up some of our convenience so that we can fight against the Haitian elite? Look at this live. How many of us should be on this live? We're not going to attract these people. So the people of us now, we're more willing to hear little and nothing. And then there can't be change if we don't understand what is happening. There can't be any change. Michelle Foster is saying the professor didn't really offer a remedy to how to fix Haiti's issues outside of overturning the whole system. Does that mean that the system in Haiti is working the way it was designed to work? Yes, it is. It's just like the plantation system. The plantation system was working the way it was designed to work. For some black slaves to be on the plantation, a few as house slaves, and you have the white masses at the top, the white, ruling class at the top, right? Now we are having the house slaves have moved up a little bit and they're now ruling. There are a few of them are part of the ruling class, and that is how the system is designed. Now, yeah, so there's no other way, as you're saying, Michelle, to any other fixing but to get rid of them. How do we get rid of them? That's what he was saying was going to be difficult to do. I am suggesting that the only way we can get rid of them is to give up some of our convenience and also not to comply with their requests, not to purchase from their stores, right? And how do we not purchase from their stores? We're not going to eat then. We're not going to clothe ourselves. We're not going to, buy our shoes to protect our feet, right? So not to work, right? Or not to work, or we will have to come up with some way, but it's going to what? Cause some pain. And many of us, particularly in this era, we don't like any pain. We don't want to suffer any pain because that's going to be too much. Okay? So this is where it is. I don't think that there's any quick fix, and that's why the professor wasn't able to answer that off the bat. What military might do we have? How do we defeat them on? They are waging psychological warfare and have our people completely bamboozled. We have a mammoth talk in waking up our people from this. Yes. And our people also, as we're saying to that, they don't want to be awoken. They want to remain in their sleep. Because again, we want to lead convenience life that is convenient and it doesn't cause any disruption. Because who wants problems, right? We all want to know, we get up in the morning, we go to work, we come home, we take care of our children if we have any, and we just live that routine. We eat and shower and go to bed, right? That is how our routines are, and we don't want it to be upset, that routine to be interrupted or to be destroyed. Then we have JJ saying, boycott rarely work. I'm not for violence, but if they attack, we have the right to defend and develop. I think the boycott is the best thing because we don't have the arms that they have. Why do you think the Haitian gangs are controlling Haiti right now? The people are fighting back, but they can't because the Haitian gangs have very powerful weapons that can destroy them, right? So this is not just about, have some sticks and some stones that they can fling at them and hurt them. This is about having very powerful weapons. And we don't know if they have surveillance. I'm sure they have surveillance tools at their disposal that they can follow you and they can kill you. They know where you are. right? So it's going to be very difficult to fight them in a physical battle. It's going to be very difficult. Fazi is saying, we will have nothing and be happy. Right. That is coming from the WEF, the World Economic Forum, that will have nothing and be happy. And they are trying to do that. That is what they're doing. That's why they have the Haitians over there. And, one of the things I find about Americans, some particular white Americans too, you'll hear them saying that they're going over to Haiti and they love Haiti. And you wonder if they love the poverty that they see there, right? Do they love the poverty that they see in Haiti? I don't know. So they're celebrating people's discontent because the people there are resilient and, and I can understand that. But are you there to celebrate their poverty? Are you there to celebrate their suffering? And it seems like that's what they're there to do. Drones and training should be priority. Yeah, I don't think we're going to win a physical combat. I think that, well, I think we can't say that too because the slaves won a physical combat, right? Didn't they? They fought and they won a physical combat. But it has to be strategic. And I think that our leaders now are so corrupt that we need, for physical combat, we have to have a leader who is, unflagging in his or her integrity. And the fact of the matter now, our leaders now, we don't have these sort of leaders, these ethical leaders like the Toussaint Louverture's, who would not betray his people, right? What we have in office now in government are betrayers. And that is what the problem. Their lives a problem. Okay? So please like the live and make sure you share the live with as many people on the platform. It was, I would have expected more of you to have turned out, but we should share this very important live because it is something worth listening to and learning from, because that is how we are going to be able to combat the fight against our colonial masters and to win the system. While we understand that the majority will not, but it's always the minority that defeat a system. Never think it's because you're not seeing 1K people on this live, it means that we're not winning. We don't know the day when this, 1725 will be converted into 1 million, right? So let's now not take, let's not be depressed. Let's continue to fight and to educate and to inform and to enlighten. And one day, the minority will be victorious. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you in another live, possibly tomorrow. Look out for the notification. I will try to set up another live. And I think I want to do the live. Are we really sold out? Is the entire Caribbean region sold out? All right. I think that would be a very good live for tomorrow, following what we have here described, because we have to look island by island: Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, Guyana, Antigua. We have to look at what is happening, invite other people on the live so we can have people from all over the region to let us know what is happening in their neck of the woods, so that we can know that everything that is happening is really similar and they're taking the Caribbean all over again. We are being recolonized, as it were. See you tomorrow. Have a great Sunday afternoon, and make sure you share the live and you like it with as many people on the platform and your friends and your families. Bye.